Okay, no.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order of Point Edward Village Council. It's January the 9th, 5 o'clock in Village of Point Edward. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land of the Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of the Anishinaabe with the spirit of the water, land, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for those generations to come. Is there anyone with pecuniary interest?
Unknown.
I have none.
Unknown.
Okay. Now I'm going to change the agenda slightly. We have a delegation here from Lambton Area Water Supply. So I'm going to do that first before we move into the public meeting to talk about the water. So could I have a motion to invite Mr. Clinton Harper within the bar?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, seconder. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, now. Yeah, and CAO Burns will got your presentation up on the screen.
This is
Then we turn it over to you.
So thank you, Mayor Hand and Village of Point Edward Municipal Council for the opportunity to speak to you today. So my name is Clinton Harper. I'm the General Manager for the Lambton Area Water Supply System. I'm here today to discuss laws requests for municipal support in the area of debt financing related to a specific capital project that laws wishes to undertake over the next 2 years. So this presentation is it's about roughly 5 minutes long. You should have a letter that kind of details this request along with the presentation. And so be advised that there's already been some discussion among the other members that's not included in the letter. So just an update at the end. So some background: in 2003, laws was created by the Minister of the Environment through a transfer order issued under the Municipal Water and Sewage Systems Transfer Act. The Transfer Act transferred ownership of the assets that make up laws from the province to the benefiting municipalities as an undivided share, and the Joint Board of Management was established for system governance. So how laws was established under this act impacts laws' ability to function independently of its members, including in some critical areas of finance. So slide 3, this is an overview of laws. So laws includes a direct filtration water treatment plant with buried reservoirs located at the mouth of St. Clair River, a booster station designed to lift potable water into East Lambton's dual pressure zones, a large capacity pumping station, reservoir, and tower in South Sarnia, standpipes in the towns of Port Lambton, Forest, and Watford. And all of these facilities connected by approximately 250 kilometers of transmission and distribution pipeline. So the system is operated primarily from the water treatment plant site and is operated in the 3 distinct pressure zones being illustrated. So slides 4 and slides 5 highlight the West Lambton pumping station. So the capital project under discussion today is located at this site. West Lambton Pumping Station is a major LAWS facility that is fully integrated into LAWS' overall system operation from an energy conservation and efficiency standpoint. The site also provides a significant amount of overall system resiliency. In addition to the fully integrated operational mode, it's possible to run the West Lambton Pumping Station in a way that allows for laws to bring the water treatment plant completely offline for short periods of time. The importance of this ability cannot be overstated from both the planned maintenance and emergency response standpoint. So based on a condition assessment completed in 2019, it's time for laws to undertake a recoating of both the interior and exterior surfaces of the reservoirs. So separate from the reservoir recoating, and this discussion really, laws is also undertaking a number of pumping station upgrades at the site. And these projects are designed to either ensure that we continue to provide current level of service to all members, or are designed to move laws forward towards the enhancement targets established by the 2020 master plan. So in April of 2003, SEMA was hired to provide engineering services for an overall laws project designed to capture the various aspects of this work. So slide 6 provides a preliminary cost estimate of the overall laws project at the West Lambton Pumping Station, developed by SEMA. Items 1 through 3 are pumping station focused and not the subject of today's discussion, as we are still in the preliminary design stage of these components. But on the other hand, The tender to complete item 4 is set to close tomorrow afternoon. In preparation for the March 2024 start, the South Reservoir at the site sits isolated and drained at this time. The construction estimate for the one tank is just under $7 million. So Laws is financially prepared to enter into a construction contract for this amount. However, to ensure we receive the best pricing, our engineering consultant is recommending that Laws award both tanks together as one overall multi-year project. This recommendation has ultimately led us to me being here today to talk to you. So the construction estimate for both tanks is 13.68 million. And in order for Laws to enter into a multi-year project for the indicated amount, it will need to receive municipal support from its members to secure debt. This additional funding will need to be in place by the end of this year to allow the work to begin on the North Tank in March of 2025. So slide 7 is a table that summarizes what has been spent and what is expected based on the latest cost estimates. In order to execute the multi-year project in the amount of 16,416,000, Laws will need to have in place 5.166 million in debt financing by the fourth quarter of 2024. So note that there's a 20% contingency amount added to the 13.68 million indicated on the previous slide under construction cost estimate. So slide 8 illustrates the impact of the Village of Point Edward. So due to Laws' organizational structure, Laws cannot hold debt independently. Instead, the entirety of the possible 5.166 million will need to be guaranteed by its members on Laws' behalf. Village of Point Edward uses 1.67% of Laws' overall system capacity and therefore contributes as much to the Laws' total budget. Therefore, the Village of Point Edward is being asked to guarantee up to 86,000 or 1.67% of 5.166 million to ensure Laws can initiate the work as a multi-year contract. So lastly, slide 9. So the request that was sent to all Laws municipal members is displayed on this slide. So be advised that since sending out this letter, several members have indicated that they would prefer to fund this work directly from their respective reserves. So initially, the letter was more looking as a guarantee to Laws to go to third-party financial institutions seeking that funding. So how this will look is still being developed, but at this point, Laws' focus is primarily on securing the member support for the multi-year project. And how that looks, whether directly funded by members or paid back over time, or securing funding through a third-party financial institution, I believe can be sorted out between now and when the funding is needed. And thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And that's the end of my presentation.
Clinton, just, you're not gonna talk about the other, work that's gone on towards a restructure?
So through the chair, at this time in 2024, Laws is a project. It's a project to evaluate our organizational structure and our limitations under the current act. So we've been formed under the Municipal Water and Sewage Systems Transfer Act. It was actually established before the Municipal Act. So there's vehicles within the Municipal Act that could provide for more autonomy for Laws. We wouldn't have to worry about bothering you with these kinds of questions if municipal members wished that to be the situation at Laws. So we're going through that process right now. We've got a board approval for the business case, and we're starting the municipal consultation step right now, but it's not going to be resolved
I
by
know
the
it's not
time.
gonna be there in time, but
We're working, yes, we're definitely trying to move Laws toward, and this is a future conversation where each member will need to decide whether they, whether it's in the best interest of the system to move into that kind of situation. It'd be like an example, like a Blue Power type of reorganization. But I mean, there's a joint municipal service board within the Municipal Act. We resemble that right now as at Laws under this setup.
so under the new setup, money could be borrowed without
It's it would,
impacting the individual municipalities, which is why we're entertaining the change. You can still have your same board if you choose to, but you're structured differently. That allows for the banking, the loans.
so through the chair, right now, all the assets are jointly owned by the members, and this is the issue. So we were to reorganize into what is called a Municipal Service Corporation and then transfer the assets to Laws. then laws could function independently of the members with respect to debt and liability and all kinds of other stuff. So right now, if we have a trip and fall on the law's site, all members are, are basically brought into that. If there's a development that happens and it's in the village of Point Edward, I might not find out about it unless I hear from you guys, even though it might be right over top of a law's transmission water main, just because laws doesn't really exist legally separate from the members right now. We're like a department of you, which is really interesting, but thank you.
Okay, let's start with questions. You want to start, Tim, do you have questions?
This corporation aspect is not unique. It is, I think from what I've seen, there's other municipalities that have similar corporations for their services. Is that correct?
So through the chair, that's correct. There's actually like cookie cutter transfer order. So that was what established laws. So Lake Huron Supply is a perfect example of another entity that was established the exact same way laws was. That's going through the same process that we are right now. Union Water, which supplies Leamington, they were in that same boat. They've actually gone through the process that I'm trying to go through, and they've restructured themselves as a municipal service corporation. So they've overcome that issue. The Tri-County area, which is Wellsburg and Chatham, they are actually a joint municipal service board under the municipal act. So they're trying to actually, they're having issues with liability and with the same issues that laws is having, but they're actually structured on the municipal act. Those are the ones that are off the top of my head. There's so Elgin area, which is part of the Lake Huron. Well, they're kind of together. I think they're probably going to go to more of a joint municipal service board. That's the way that conversation is going. But these conversations are ongoing throughout the province.
I got a call time.
Sorry.
I have to leave the room because I'm a board member.
Oh,
So I just wanted to bring up that change because that affects the future. So I'll just knock on my door when I come back.
Yeah.
What about Jason?
He's not a voting member
Okay,
of either group. so-
he's my technical guy, but I'm a voting.
One more question. if I could. This money, so we support this. So do we I guess, how's the money flow? Like you get, are we involved in procuring the funds anyway, or is it through your service board? The laws.
so through the who is the chair? Chair. So the way that it was originally set up, the letter was an ask for laws to go to a CIBC or one of the big five, right? To ask for to come up with the best price, right? The way that it's moving towards is more of a funded through the municipal members. So right now, all municipal members have chosen to actually fund this through their reserves. And that's just gonna, what that would be a payback over a number of years and I would expect there would be interest on that amount. I don't know what that would be yet. I would hope it'd be less than what the banks would be charging, but
We would hope it'd be more.
yeah. But we would have time to work that out at this time. Like I said, it's the fourth quarter, 2024. It'd be the end of this year. We'd have to have it in place. So
24.
24.
Okay.
So if I may, the original request was going to be that we support as a member partner in the organization, we support them in obtaining a loan from the bank.
Yes.
Through his presentations to other ownership member municipalities, they have chosen to fund it through their own reserves.
Okay.
So that's what he's asking for at this time is like an agreement in principle to give laws a loan of $86,000, which is our share. And then this will have, it would need to take place sometime in the last quarter of this year, and final agreement would come back to council for final approval at that time, just, and that would have the terms, the exact dollar amount and, repayment over 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be. The terms of that loan would be determined at that time. Is that?
Absolutely. That's the goal.
Councilor Doctor.
So I think that answered my question, but just to be clear, the other municipalities expressed that they wanted to fund it directly from the reserve. So all involved municipalities would have to agree on the same form of, like, either from the reserves or through a bank, correct?
Through the chair, I don't think that you have to do anything. You can do it. You could choose to not fund through reserves but that would basically trigger a bunch, like I haven't explored that yet. It's very tricky for laws to be able to budget for that, right? We would have almost like a two-tiered budget where, because there'd be interest on that amount through, so
Mhm.
through the chair, I apologize. If I was to go to the bank and ask for an $86,000 loan, there'd be interest on that amount, but it wouldn't be interest that would go to any other member but Village of Point Edward. And right now, my financial department is not set up to be able to separate that out. So I can't say that every member has to do the same thing, but it would be um, it'd be helpful if they did. It would be cleaner, and it would probably be, if the money's available locally, it would be what's the word? Like if it was already in reserves right now, it might actually be beneficial from an overall cost standpoint to the overall system, right?
Thank you.
Councilor Burgess?
Do you have any idea how long the restructuring will take that you're talking about?
So through the chair, the Lake Huron Supply has been working on it for the last 10 years. I'm starting it this year. They've already paved the groundwork. It's great. My plan is to have it in place before the next municipal election. Because it would not make sense to be able, kind of get buy-in from all of our members and all the groups before then. So that's my goal. So it's definitely going, we're aiming for a couple of years. It's definitely some work. So it's a lot of public consultation, municipal consultation. It's really difficult to sit down with 6 separate municipal councils and get them, and work through their unique individual needs and questions and concerns. So
I just had one other
Yep.
question. Does it have to come from a water reserve from our end?
I wouldn't think so. I think council has the autonomy to choose where it comes
Okay.
from.
That's what I was gonna say. And Councilman, do I switch it over? Did you have anything else?
No.
Okay. So of the 6 municipalities, have the other 5 have committed to paying from the reserves directly without the financing?
through the chair, each one has done it a little bit differently.
Okay.
So I've personally presented to township or the town of Put Wyoming, and I've presented to the township of Warwick. St. Clair Township, I need to still get 100% confirmation on that. City of Sarnia, they had their own meeting and Charles staff dealt with it. Lambton Shores, they're still haven't met yet. They don't want me involved. They have their own staff. They're taking care of it. So I don't have 100% yet, but we're moving towards that right
That's
now.
the way it's headed. Maybe it makes sense because then we would be essentially getting interest back on our loan to you rather than it going from a bank, right? So there would be payback to us, not only in improving the water distribution system, but our money would be out there making money, right? Is what I'm thinking.
So through you, like that, I mean, I didn't think of this, like it's a really great idea.
Yeah.
Like, if you have the available funds in your reserves and when, laws, we have a steady, we are a municipal entity, we're selling water every day, right?
Yeah.
So we can pay you back, right? So
Yeah.
it's a really good, I think it's a really good approach. I wish I had come up with it, honestly. It's really good.
Yeah, 'cause you have a revenue stream that's guaranteed and
right.
ready to go, so. So for the motion tonight, we're looking for is more. We support the 86,000 and then. Whether Clinton was back wanting us to guarantee the loan or to actually take our reserves.
Yeah.
We'll decide later.
Yeah, he has given us a motion.
Okay.
I try and see if I can make this bigger. So it is a bit wordy, but that's okay. We can. That the Village of Point Edward Council approve the recommendation to the Lambton area water supply system to request municipal support as a guarantor in order for laws to secure the debt financing needed in 2024 to undertake a rehabilitation of the law's 90 megaliter reservoir located at the West Lambton Pumping Station. So that's the recommendation from laws was to secure that financing, so that's the first part, is we're supporting that piece. And then that the Village of Point Edward provide laws with a letter of support. Upon receipt of a draft debt agreement up to the amounts being indicated. So that's basically signing the agreement in the fall when everything's finalized, final numbers and repayment terms and all that kind of stuff. And then the final piece is that the village actually pay the 86,000 out of village reserves.
And as Councillor Burgess indicated, we'll just take that out of our,
I think
because it's mainly,
it's an investment. really.
exactly, yeah, that's what I'm saying, we're loaning money out, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter where Janet
Yeah.
comes from.
Can I just say one last thing?
For sure,
through
yeah.
The chair, just, we're fully aware that your money is in the bank making money right now. So we are, we don't expect this to be, free, obviously. Like we will negotiate an interest for a return for you guys. So,
Yep.
and we really do appreciate the support, obviously, because we need to get this done. So.
Yep, and we started double digits, so we'll work from there. Okay, so we need a mover then, okay? Councillor Noctor, second by
second.
Councillor Mandu. Any discussion, further discussion? No? Okay, we call the vote, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, I moved my book in the other room. The next part. My binder like this, I left on my desk. Thanks.
Take care, thanks. Want a muffin? Okay. It's a branded muffin.
Yeah.
86,000 in a muffin.
It's not approved. Now we can move on to the public meeting next.
And I'm gonna go back to. this meeting. Went through it all together. The agenda, you got your agenda up there.
Yeah. So going back to the public meeting for the environmental service. I need to turn the hearing on.
So now we're going to go into the public portion of the meeting to discuss the Environmental Services Department budget. And I am going to turn it over to the chair of the committee, Ariana Noctor. Take it away.
This year's budget includes a 5% increase to all consumption rates for water and sewage and an increase in reserve rates from 75 cents per cubic meter to $1.13 per cubic meter. The cost for the average homeowner for these increases would be approximately $5.94 per month. The budget calls for $291,855 to be brought from reserves to help offset the cost of the budget. The budget allows for the building of the new environmental services building through a debenture from Infrastructure Ontario. It anticipates borrowing $1,582,000, as that is the number that we had as a ballpark in last year's budget. Discussion?
I think if there's any questions from council members, we can try to. I guess if I may, I sent out a report this afternoon, a spreadsheet that showed how much money we've been generating in reserves for about the last 8 or 9 years. And that was information that had been requested, as well as how much money we brought in from reserves over the last 4 or 5 years, and from where they came. So a couple of years it came from the village side of things, and a couple of times it came from the water side of things, sort of the water reserves rather than village reserves. And usually when it comes from the village, it's not actually from a reserve for the most part, it's from the village capital budget, so basically casino funds for that year. So just wanted to kind of summarize that I'd sent out.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, I guess Tina and Jason are here tonight, and between the three of us, we'll try to answer any questions you may have.
I have a comment or a question. I would prefer to see, not all the money come from reserves, but to come from casino funding. Or at least some kind of a split, but not all from reserves. I think the casino money should be used without impacting our reserves. That's my comment.
So that's definitely a possibility. To get the budget where it is today, we need to bring 295, whatever that, 295,000 and change into balance to get it to that 5%. Where it comes from, there's 2 or 3 options, either come from water reserves or casino funds or village reserves. Village reserves a little bit more iffy because of Jay, can you tell us, there's this idea of, just before you, there's legislation. We've been operating under the assumption that there's legislation that requires water and wastewater to be self-funding. We've researched that a little bit more, and the legislation actually never passed. Most municipalities work towards that. Now, however, in our operating license, there may be something that,
Yeah, so our drinking water,
yeah, can you come up so that people
Oh,
hear you?
sorry.
so our drinking water license references are the financial plans. So back in when Bill 175, I believe it is, that was repealed in 2010, that was the one that said we had to be full cost recovery for water, wastewater. When it was repealed in 2010, the ministry came out with a guidance, the MOE came out with a guidance document, which is this, it's called Toward Financial Sustainability Drinking Water and Water System, Wastewater Systems. They wrote this in 2007. So now, if you go through and you read our financial plan, which this is what we submitted to the ministry to get our drinking water license. It refers in here back to this guidance document. So it's not legislation saying that you can or cannot do this, but if you go through this document, it has a lot of discussions about trying to get to a full cost recovery type of system, to be self-sustaining, to make sure that this, our rates are funding the system, not only for operations, but as far as capital, future capital, growth, all that stuff. It talks about water and wastewater as well, where, the financial plan we have only talks about basically the water system, but in these documents, they're trying to get municipalities to start working towards, a full cost recovery for both water and wastewater. There's a few references throughout our financial plan that talks about it. There's different recommendations through our financial plan that we had done by Watson Associates about doing rates, future rate studies to basically try to set our rates up so we could be fully funding ourselves. So it is in the documents. If we don't meet the requirements when we put in for our renewal for our drinking water license, we could potentially be, looked at, or, if we don't have a system that's paying for itself, and we're always in a shortfall, or we get ourselves into a situation where you know, we can't fund our system properly, we could potentially lose our drinking water license. Which obviously we wouldn't be able to supply water, so that would be a big thing to try to overcome. I don't know if there's any
Yeah.
questions to that.
So I think in summary, there's nothing that requires us to only use water funds generated by water to fund the system. You know, all the recommendations are we work towards that, but there's nothing that says we must do that at this point.
Basically, yes, when they repealed Bill 175 in 2010, that took out the whole you must do this to using a governance document, which it still wants you to get to the same. It just takes some of the legal liabilities and it leaves options for municipalities that don't have a rate system right now that's gonna do full cost recovery to continue. As we discussed in the past, there's, you know, if money needs to be spent to make sure that the system's safe and operating, the government is not gonna wanna, you know, charge or stop you from using other funds to make sure people have safe drinking water. So it's, you know, it's still there, but it's not a black and white area. It's a little more open for us to decide or for council to decide how they're gonna fund things, but the goal is to have full cost recovery.
Quick question, how often do we renew the drinking water license?
Ours is, I actually have to submit it this year, so it's so this is issued, wrong one. I believe it's every 5 years, I believe.
Thank you.
I know I have to submit the renewal by July of this year.
Jay, from your professional opinion and contact with other, do you think the government will push us towards the self-sustainability in a decade or two, or is it dead?
I personally could see it come back to a point where they're gonna try to push it. The wastewater side of the whole industry, you know, Walker didn't happen, a lot of changes were made. They've had a big push for a lot of things in wastewater that the water had. Unfortunately, I guess the biggest thing I hear from the ministry is they don't have the resources and the staff to actually implement the same setup as the water, so they are slowly working to it, but it's taking a lot longer to get anywhere with the wastewater. But they're definitely, like, they're talking about trying to bring in quality management systems into the new wastewater systems, and I think there's gonna be a lot more regulations and stuff down the road come in. It's just a matter of the ministry just doesn't have the staff to get everything implemented. I do think it's going to come back, and I think they're going to push more and more municipalities, more people I talk to in the industry are finding it harder and harder to fund. Just the cost of everything is skyrocketing. For one example, pipe, we bought some water main pipe, and it's basically doubled since 2019. You know, we gotta fix all the infrastructure. As it gets older, there's more and more costs gonna be coming. You know, we're in the same situation as a lot of municipalities, probably most of the infrastructure has hit that end of life, you know, term, and everyone's still basically using borrowed time.
So as a follow-up question. So how do we get there? And I know I hear over and over that expenses are pretty much fixed, right? Like there's not a lot we can do in our operating expenses. So how would we get there?
Really, the only way to get there and be full cost recovery is you have to, you know, set your rates at a level that you can pay 100% of your operating and your capital costs. It's a user pay system.
Mhm.
That's what, basically, that's what the industry is looking to go towards is, you know, whatever we pay out, we have coming back in and that we have enough reserves to cover future costs. We are looking at having our financial plan updated. We're gonna need to have that with all this condition assessment on the sanitary and storm sewer side. That's gonna give us, you know, a far better idea of where we sit as far as our condition of our infrastructure. The water main, we went through that a number of years ago where we found a bad section of water main on Venetian Boulevard. And it was a 600,000 plus fix that wasn't expected, and unfortunately, there is technology where companies can send sensors through the water mains and it'll measure wall thickness and then they can get a really good idea of the condition of a water main. Most of the technology is for 10-inch and up, so we have very little water pipe that we could actually use that technology in. You know, maybe in the next few years, they'll be able to do the smaller size pipes and, I've been looking at it for years, but unfortunately, our pipes aren't big enough to use the technology. So we're kind of relying on, you know, where are we seeing problems, water main breaks. St. Clair's a prime example for the water main on St. Clair. You know, the amount of water main breaks since my time with the village is more than I can count on both hands, so. We need to get, you know, that section that's gonna be done, and, you know, there's other stuff that is just as old or older in the village that needs to be taken care of within the next, you know, 5, 10, 15 years, and the cost is gonna be significant.
Another question, if I may, is how much of a shortfall are we gonna be asked to fund is there one this year?
I assume there's going to be, I don't have a number yet.
Okay, you don't even have a ballpark, like, okay. A second question, and might affect Tina, is it possible to do more than one rate increase a year?
I mean, like half of the year, do it again.
Like I'm saying, January 1st rate increase and a July rate increase, is that,
Actually, that idea came up previously,
has it, yeah,
so it must be. I remember a discussion about it.
yeah, is it
We didn't do
doable
it,
within our
but-
accounting stuff of
We
it?
don't do our kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
We do our power.
so we would just tell them,
Jason
yeah,
said.
sorry, Jason.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, it would just be a matter of contacting Blue Water Power and
See, on this date,
Anyway.
charge this much, eh?
Yeah, I think he'd absolutely be able to do
And I
that.
think the reason I'm asking that is, for years, we keep hearing we need more revenue to fund, water usage has gone down, which hasn't been helping us to get there. And whether you do a 5% in January and another 2.5% in July to help get us there, right? I know that's just the number I threw out of my head, but I mean, it reduces the impact to residents and it moves us forward, but not as aggressively, but, it would still be seen as a 7.5% increase. I get that, but I mean, it's just, I'm trying to find solutions on how we could, to do that. And I have one last question.
We're gonna, back to your question about how would we fully fund it? If we had to fully fund it, we'd be looking at 27%,
Mhm.
right? Without
Yeah.
moving any money over.
In
Yeah.
addition, yeah, no, you're
Yeah,
right.
5+,
Yeah, you're right.
right?
Sure.
So that would be a 27% increase that we would require by not injecting any money into it.
And then my last question is, the funding proposal for the building to come out of debentures. I think everyone here knows I have a real issue with giving Infrastructure Ontario or a bank or whatever, all that interest money on a building. And I'm just wondering if we can't find a more creative way to fund it in-house, either through, now that we've got this clarification on the legislation, whether casino money or and I know we don't want to delay, but let these reserves build up so that we can actually use the reserves, even a portion towards it, and then a portion from the village. But I really am reluctant to agree to take a $1.5 million building and make it over 2 million or 2.5 million just because our financial house is under order.
So we have not looked at financing for this building at all yet, because we don't know what it's gonna cost, right? Really, I haven't taken the time to contact Infrastructure Ontario or any other loaning organization, because we don't know what we need to ask for yet. So I think that's a great, if we have a couple $1 million in reserves and we need to borrow, or we need $1 million, so yeah, self-fund it. If we're in a position to do that, I mean, I'm not sure where it puts us at a cash flow, but we can absolutely look at that as a possibility.
But that means taking the money up from casino, not from reserves.
Or a
Wow.
reserve.
Or a combination of all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of them, yeah.
Yeah, so we're not pilfering the reserves to keep the rate down.
So back to Greg's, suggestion of doing 2 different rates in a year. Then you're gonna be dealing with the residents twice.
True.
The other possibility is you can have different percentages. Commercial could be a different percentage than residential, it doesn't have to be across the board.
Right. And I thought about that too, and I thought, okay, do you do commercial at 10, residential at 5, or should we be the other way and trying to help our commercial businesses out?
And
Because-
it's commercial that were, those were not cubic meter.
Yes. Yes. Okay, that's all I have for now, Mary Ann. Thank you.
Just
Councilor
on
Madhu?
that, back when I was chair, we did separate rates
Yes.
for like, if just the residential, we had the service charge one rate, we had the water another rate, we had the sewer another rate, we had reserves another rate.
Yeah.
So they weren't across the board, they were all different, because that was the need. We tried to put more money, of course, we've been trying to build reserves, right? But at that time, we tried to put the money where it was needed most, and it seems to be required most on the sewage side rather than the water, right? The water we get, as long as we're paying for enough of that, but the rate for sewer was, I can't remember what it was, but it was more than what the regular rate, where the sales for water was. So it's been done in the past.
Yeah, we tried it for 1 year.
Yeah.
Then we kind of went back to that.
Yeah, we don't have to, it's not a cookie cutter. Right. Yeah, if I can just make another point, I went back to a document, 2013 asset management plan. And it says for water, you're gonna not like this number. The minimum we should be putting in reserves a year is 575,000, and the max is 850 in reserves alone. To
And that
cover.
was 10 years ago.
Since.
Yeah, to cover our expenses, so. I'm just saying, there's a document out there that at that time said, this is what we needed to stay ahead of the game. And we're looking at what, 318 this year?
Yeah, but we're taking 290 out.
Yeah. And that's up from where we've been. So, and traditionally, our rates have been very low. I know the residents don't always think that, but, other municipalities pay more for money or they pay more for water than we do, and we've proven that with the different surveys. We're at the low end of the county. But I don't know what the answer is.
Just,
Deputy Mayor Grant?
if I may just expand on what Councilor Mindy said, I think we really have to get our heads around this transfer to reserves and transfer out, because, the previous council and this council, we've made great strides in increasing our contribution to reserves to try and get to where Councilor Mondi says we need to be. So we've, if you look at our chart in 21, we put 100 into reserves. And this year we're putting over 300. To me, that's significant, and it shows our commitment to building those reserves and having a bit of a self-sustaining thing. But to take 291 out of that, we've just undone everything we've done in building that contribution to reserves. Because now we're putting 30,000 in, which is a rounding error, essentially a budget of this size. So I don't know how we can get that fixed. I mean, casino money, village capital, yeah, those are solutions, but they're Band-Aids, because we're still running the water department way above revenues, right? The expenses are far exceeding it. And we also know that Jay is not addressing all of the issues that are in the plan. There are more than just the building. There's other things that, you know, the Bayview one, I'm very aware of and love to do that. But we have no money in reserves to do that because we're taking money out of reserves every year to keep the lights on essentially. And so how we stop that circle that's the challenge that's facing us right now. And I don't know how we do that.
So the Bayview is a separate issue, like that's dealt with in the other budget,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So there is money in reserve
Yeah,
and we're not.
that-
Yeah.
But there are other
Your point
projects.
is
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
there.
I just grabbed a bad
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
We started putting money away for that project,
Yeah.
but it's in the other budget.
Yeah,
I have another question. Last council meeting, we made a decision to fund St. Clair Street residents with up to $5,000 for water lines. That's about $200,000.
Potentially, yeah.
Where is that money coming from? Because we're tight on, if is that the water, because we're tight there. We're already taking 291 out. Where are we gonna get that money?
Mhm.
You know,
So-
there's a payback, but it's gonna take a number of years, right? So,
So the thought there is, there'll be money like from the Infrastructure Ontario loan for that project, so there should be between what we've got in reserves for the project and what we've got marked to borrow from Infrastructure Ontario, there should be enough money to pay those connection fees as well, like the work that's gonna be done on private property. There
so
should be
this
enough
is
to
not
cover.
gonna be something over and above. That's gonna be,
No,
it's gonna
like
be.
we're at 6 million, we're, you know,
And we do have reserve money.
Yeah, we've got,
reserved for that.
the specific reserve for St. Clair Street's over $1 million, isn't it? Plus, we can borrow up to 6 million from, Infrastructure Ontario, and then we've also got, there's a couple of grants, like the, OCIF, and then is that the transport?
Used to be AMO, now it's CCFD or something.
Yeah.
They're the one that
So
changed.
there's some other, the grant we got for doing the path, that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying
Yeah.
to think of,
Yeah.
but it's not coming to me, it's something transit, so there's, there is some money that we have. That. So we should have lots of money to do this project, and if it's, if the cost is $200,000, I think there's 200. And the idea would be, we just don't, if we only need to borrow 5.2 million, then we don't borrow 6 million, we borrow 5.2. But if we need to, if our portion is 5.2 and the municipal or the private property is another 200,000 or whatever the number is, then that's how I would see us funding it.
Just another comment. Recently, the provincial government's been sending out notices about Infrastructure Ontario. And there's gonna be lots of money available, hundreds of millions of dollars for municipalities to upgrade. And I'm not sure like what we're gonna do, will it fit within, I think they said roads and water, wastewater. So sounds like money shouldn't be a problem. And it, depending on rates and all that, but it
Yeah.
looks like the money should be available, but they're not saying grants, they're saying loans,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, that's the big piece. It's a loan.
Yeah,
And, my understanding, I haven't done a whole lot of research, but the bit of reading I've done about that is it's for new housing growth too.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not, my understanding is it's not to upgrade. If we needed to replace a water line to service St. Clair Street, I don't think that qualifies. If we had to put in a larger line, if we had to put in a sewage line, say, to service
Almost
any
90
development to the
years,
south
yeah.
of the village, that would probably be eligible
okay,
for that.
okay, so it's
But-
existing from what you've read?
From what and
right,
it's
so
been
far.
fairly minimal, but
Yeah.
it's for new home support.
Okay, so if we need to provide additional services for the possible developments coming in the south end of the village.
Yeah.
We could,
That's where I see
that,
us.
you see that, we're
going.
okay,
And I mean, I also see the developer paying a large chunk of that money too. I mean, it'll be, I don't have a whole lot of idea of the scale of what that's gonna cost, right? Hopefully we hear from BM Ross fairly soon. And we'll have a better idea, because part of the study was giving us where are the bottlenecks and what are some possible ways of increasing our capacity. So, you know, we might have a better idea in the next, you know, in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I think we'll hear from them. I really, really hope we do. So that'll give us some idea of what it might cost. But, you know, normally, because we don't have development charges, the developer would be responsible for paying for a lot of the infrastructure. But so there'd be some negotiation between the
That'd be
municipality.
voluntary, would it
Pardon me?
not? Would that be voluntary because we do not have a plan for them to?
Well, it wouldn't be voluntary. It would be, you know, it'd be a requirement. Yeah, if you want to do this development,
Okay.
this is what you're gonna have to do to get it there. Because we're not gonna pay
It's a
$20
making
million,
a shared
right?
agreement.
Like it's, you know, we're not gonna pay all of your costs for development so that you can strike it rich and the entire municipality shoulder the cost of your development.
Yeah, our present taxpayers shouldn't be paying for the growth.
Right.
Not all of it, for sure.
Yeah, that's right, not all of it.
Sorry, Paul, or Councilor Burgess.
I have a question and it's more of just curious, and I don't know if anybody can answer this. What percentage of municipalities do we think are compliant with the water and fully funding it through the ratepayers? Any idea? Any educated guesses?
Told none. You don't think anybody else?
Okay, because we're beating ourselves up over this, and I appreciate what Mayor Hand said, because that's the most common comment I get from people who live in the village. And I see a lot of these as capital projects, and we use casino money for capital projects.
Mhm.
Whether it's roads, arena roof or things like that, we use that money for it. And I don't think we're doing anything wrong, and I think it is a lot to put on our ratepayers, especially in 3 months, 2.5 months, we're gonna be doing another budget, which is probably gonna have another increase.
So I think it's significant when you think about. They repealed it in 2010. That's 14 years ago. And I think the reason it's my own idea, the reason that it's never come back in is because all the municipalities are struggling to be self-sustaining. in
Well,
that
every
area.
municipality has typically, maybe not all of them, have another source of revenue that isn't the taxpayer. And I guarantee you that all of
lucky ones.
those other municipalities in the province will utilize that income
Excuse me.
to offset the expense to the ratepayers. So I think I see it exactly as a capital project, especially when we're talking about the age of some of the pump stations and the generators and things like that do need to be replaced as essential. Because if we did have a sewage backup, it would cost us a lot more money than what these expenses are costing us.
If I could just add to that too, like theoretically, if we use a portion of the casino revenue to catch up on some of those much needed capital projects for the wastewater treatment. And we could very well save ourselves a lot of money in the short and long term and be able to put that money then into reserves going forward. So I know one of your questions was, how can we become self-sustaining if that's our goal, if we want it to be our goal? And we could not increase the rates enough to do that, but if we catch up on some of the projects with the casino funds and kind of set ourselves back up to be in a good place where we're not funding all of these projects little by little, where we have to play catch up for years and years and years, we very well could be able to get ahead in the hopefully not so distant future.
And, I mean,
Yeah,
it's a great idea and I support that. The only challenge with that is typically our casino revenues are pre-spent,
Mhm.
right? Like when we come into budget, we don't have a lot of casino money left on the table.
Not really, there's always, on the village side, there's always, usually the starting list is 3, 4, 5 times more than the revenue.
Yeah.
You know, we know we're paying $1.3 million for a fire truck in the next 3 years. We strongly support, council has strongly supported spending between $300,000 and $500,000 on a playground equipment down. So I'm just saying there are lots of needs
Mhm.
in every department. And I don't agree, I don't disagree with one word you've said.
Yeah.
But there's
But then-
never a
but then-
shortage of.
But then maybe now that we understand, or we are aware of the repealing of that legislation, that we need to rethink our priorities
Mhm.
from a village capital perspective, and to what Councillor Noctor has said, maybe instead of putting some pumps on the back burner, or some critical infrastructure for the plant on the back burner to put in a playground, that maybe we delay this playground, and as I sent in my capital notes, make it part of the 2028 initiative
Yep.
for our anniversary, and build it then, and focus a couple years on the plant is a thought.
And
But we also have Matt tax.
yeah, that's.
Should be funding the playground.
Or Mattac could fund the plant, because if we wouldn't get many tourists without water or sewers,
You can make the argument, you can make the argument.
go to the hotel and the toilet won't flush,
Yeah.
I'm not coming back.
I think it's deciding what our priority
Yeah.
is, whether we want to catch up on these projects and work towards sustainability
I think the
or.
playground was.
Yeah, it was, yeah. So we're lucky to have that extra. fund.
Yes, yeah.
Well, just through the chair, the casino revenue too has dropped, right?
Yep.
Because before COVID, we were at 2.5 million. Last year, we budgeted 1.7. So that's, and through COVID, we lost what, $4.5 million of casino revenue? So that didn't help, certainly didn't help our situation,
Mhm.
but maybe we need to divvy up that casino revenue up front.
Mhm.
Water gets some. Fire gets some. Operations get some. And then that goes into reserves, and then we spend what's left. Pay yourselves first. Same as you do at home. And then we work on maybe our list of things to do. I don't know.
My opinion, if you care to hear it, I think Councillor Mondou's idea about different rates, because you're 100% right. We don't hear from Jay about a lot of expenses for the water department. We hear about them for sewage, like, I need to replace the clarifier. I don't know if that's, but I need to replace the clarifiers at the plant. I need $150,000. I need to upgrade the pumps at the pumping stations. It's $250,000. I need to replace a fire hydrant. It's $1,200 or $2,000 or whatever. Like it is not really, not that there can't be huge expenses when you go to replace a water line. But the year after year after year expenses are in sewage.
Well, water's fairly passive, right? Water passes through a pipe and through valves versus the plant where there's a lot of mechanical and processing, right? Is that true?
It's a very simple distribution, so it's pipes in the ground, hydrants, valves. We do a couple valves normally in a year. Hydrants went from $1,200 to $4,000.
Okay.
But and that's just since 2019.
Yeah.
But again, we do, we might do, depending on the year, maybe 3, give or take, couple, depending on, if there's an accident or something happens. We sometimes have, we might do 2 one year, 5 the next if we have to, but it's all fairly common, like the pipes, pipes in the ground on Venetian, the pipe's gonna be there for, 50 years. The pipes that are in the ground, they don't have major wear, like when we're talking the sewage treatment plant, the material's a lot more abrasive. You have electric motors, you have pumps with bearings, you have mechanical equipment that wears out and fails. A pipe is a pipe in the ground.
And it can fail, but
They can,
it's
Yeah.
not as frequent or,
yeah,
and even the maintenance, once it's in the ground.
but it's, flushing.
Yeah.
With the newer pipes, you can do swabbing and stuff. There is maintenance, but it's not the
Yeah.
same type of maintenance. So the maintenance at the wastewater
Lease.
is more and the life expectancy of the infrastructure in the wastewater side that we have compared to the distribution system with the pipes in the ground. It's night and day. The pipes are gonna last. The equipment's gonna get 10 to 20 year range.
Well, just like we've got an incident on Michigan Ave right now, right? With the pipes.
Storm sewer, we have a storm sewer pipe, there's a section that's gonna have to be all replaced. come the spring. We're gonna have to do a repair this week and then for a larger project in the spring, so.
And on storm sewers, there's no revenue on that side of the books. Right? So that's all cost for us. We have no way to get that money back. Really, unless we figure it into a rate someplace, right?
Well, and every year we talk about that. Through you is adding us, many municipalities, as Jay has told us, have
Yeah.
a storm sewer charge on the bill because we have to manage all that rainwater.
Yes.
Everybody diverts their rainwater either into the storm sewer or onto the roadways and into our catch basins. So we are handling all that storm water, but we don't charge people for that. And Bayview's an example of a very significant expense that's gonna come up upon us, and we've had no revenue associated with Bayview, right? Is that?
Actually, maybe was it 2-3 years ago now, we had the poly pipe break.
Yep.
There was $120,000-ish repair. Again, with no revenue, no funds, it was you know, it was a hard hit to the finances, and then again, with these 60-year-old diesels over there, we're looking at a significant, and we've been, you know, trying to plan for that, but it's still gonna be a big expense and again, zero revenue.
Now, some would argue the taxes I pay should manage stormwater. It falls on the roads that the municipality built and whatever, like I can see both sides of that argument, right? Like, it's the cost of having a municipality and having hard surfaces that the water has to be managed. If all we had was grass, we wouldn't have to worry about it, right? So we've created the problem, but it's gotta be paid for by somebody.
And that's one of with the fee structures, if you look at a lot of municipalities that do have fee structures for stormwater, they look at, most of them take into consideration property size. And then they also take in whether it's commercial or residential, whether you have green space, a lot of green space, or you know, a big warehouse parking lot. And it all depends on what kind of rates you pay for that. So if the village ever decided to go to a municipal storm rate, you know, that would all have to be discussed and planned out, because, you know, obviously you wouldn't want to charge a residential property with a lawn, like full of lawn, the same as a building.
EMI building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where
One of the
all
hotels.
Yeah. Yeah. One
all
of
that-
those, yeah.
every bit of that rain comes into our system. So,
Yeah, and on that, are places that have the storm sewer water, is it a flat fee typically? Like, it's not, because there's no way to meter it, so it's just a basic,
it's most of the ones I've looked at are based on property size
mhm,
and basically whether you're
hard surface.
hard surface or not. So that's what they look at, is basically the percentage, like even with the building department. You know, with our planning, they talk about if you want to do a development or build a new building, to tie in there, you're only allowed basically pre-construction flows in our storm system. Anything after that, you're supposed to deal with it in another manner. We've dealt with that with some of the hotels, trying to sort that out. So it's one of the things where, you know, they have trouble dealing with it, so it still ends up coming to us, or we get running issues on some of these properties.
Just a final on that, is there legislation required to introduce that, or can we just add it to the bill and there's no like,
No, there's nothing I have ever seen or know about as far as legislation for collecting fees.
Yeah, I
Or-
think what we should do, if we're seriously interested in
Yeah.
looking at it, we should contact a couple of municipalities that have done it.
Yeah.
And
I think you said London has a good program, do they not?
London, yeah, there's a number of them that have it.
Yeah,
I know Windsor, I think they've got, you know, tend to be bigger municipalities, but
mhm.
There's a lot of stormwater that flows off the bridge too. If you've ever been driving under there when it's raining.
Yeah, oh yeah,
They
those
divert
pipes
a
are,
lot
yeah.
into
yeah.
our infrastructure.
Does it go into the bridge water goes into ours, or is it,
Some of it does, yeah, like,
oh, those big piles of rocks, where do they go? Right to the river? Like under the bridge?
some of it goes on the ground, excuse me, others like on, some of it'll flow on to get down, into the storm sewers in, like off of Alexandra Ave. some of Bayview, some of their stormwater goes in, they pump it right into their, retention ponds.
Okay,
And then they pump it out back out to the river. We do get,
Because we get money from them
Mhm.
for it.
we do get a.
That's why I was
Sorry.
curious
We
where
do get a.
all their
portion
flow
just
went.
From Bayview.
Just, yeah,
yeah, just Bayview.
We get a portion back from that every year, but.
Mhm.
And that's because they know that Bridgewater is going through Bayview at some point.
Yes, we are getting. some
assume
of
it's
their-
location.
their
Yeah.
stuff. I don't know what all the details of the original, I've never seen the original agreement, but, there's that 18%, I've personally never seen it to read it. But
So we're not gonna be able to solve the stormwater issue tonight, but if that's something that we want to do, then we should investigate it as potential to introduce next year.
Mhm.
Because we don't have time. I mean, we have to make a rate now for
No.
this year, so.
Well, in 2 weeks. Like, we're not doing it tonight.
Normally we
No,
would do it
yeah.
tonight. In the past, we've always done it at this
We've
meeting.
approved this budget for this meeting?
Mhm.
What's the meeting on the, well, that's the,
That's just a regular council meeting on the 23rd.
what was the meeting is put in the 21st, the Thursday, the 21st?
That's March budget.
March.
meeting,
And that's why
21st.
we're meeting tonight, Greg,
Mm,
because we haven't been doing the first Tuesday, second Tuesday. It's because we set the rate.
interesting.
You just forgot a year ago.
I thought this was just more of a information sharing meeting, so, okay. Because we've thrown a bunch of really good ideas out here that,
Yeah, and I mean, that's the beauty of recording these things. We go back and make a list of things that we need to look up and.
because I thought we were coming back to approve it, because I was gonna make a recommendation that we staff look at what we can do with these rates as Councillor Mondu proposed, and maybe go a little higher on the sewage rate, since that's where a lot of the expenses in this department are going.
But you still can do that, Greg, and then you don't have to bring in as much
Yeah,
Yeah.
reserve.
Yeah,
and then look at that other concept
'Cause I was-
for
I
next
was also
year.
hoping to say that the money from reserves would be reduced to at least 150 somehow.
Of the 290, you mean?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
get that down to 150 at the top end, either through casino revenue or this increase to sewage. And then I was hoping to see what the impact would be of a mid-year increase. And if it's just gonna be very little money, then is it worth it? Because as Tina pointed out, we would upset the residents twice versus once.
So
But
that's
they would call Blue Water
relatively,
Power.
um,
So there's a lot there that I think. And I remember last year, didn't we go late with the approval and Blue Water Power were not happy
They're not happy that it's.
today?
It's January.
They're not happy
They,
it's in
they would
24.
prefer it before the first of the year.
so. If I may, that's something that has been discussed around this table before, but moving the budget forward.
Mhm.
It would be very difficult for Tina to do that, like the time she spends on. I mean, it's not like she's sitting there in July with nothing to do, so she can do another budget in July. This year, I think, is our opportunity to do that. With Tina's retirement in late October, my proposal that I'm gonna bring forward in the village budget is to hire. Tina's replacement starting July 1st. And one of the things I'm gonna, like, because we'll have two people here, is to start on the 2025 budget in July and pass it in, November, early December, that kind, so that. Cause there's just, I mean, how often do we get requests? There's a request
Just one
tonight
tonight.
to approve a capital item ahead of time. That
Correct.
happens
Yeah.
every year. So we can eliminate some of those things. Now, the downside to doing that is you're taking more risks, right? When you don't approve your budget to March, if something comes up, you can deal with it, but. There's pros and cons to doing it, but that's my proposal is gonna be to try to do a budget.
You're
Basically
almost
do
making
two
up
budgets this year.
by year.
Yeah, you're
And
almost gonna have to
you
start
depend on
basing-
forecasting, right? You have to do a lot more forecasting
Yes.
and, which is an accepted practice,
Yeah.
but it's just, it's riskier, right?
That's exactly, there's more risk to it, but
But,
lots of people do it.
yeah, yeah,
We just haven't haven't had the resources to do it in the past. This year, we have the opportunity to have the resources to do it, I believe. I think if we approve the village budget in March, we start advertising in April. I think it's very reasonable to have somebody start here by first of July. And, let them know, we want you to, we don't want you to learn from Tina and everything else that you have to do. But we also want to have our budget for 2025 passed. And possibly, we talk about how casino revenue is a big part of our budget. And so if we take a portion of our casino budget now, that very much affects what we can do in March with the village budget. Well, maybe we can do them both at the same
that would
time.
be,
Yeah.
that would be the.
And so it's just, Tina it would be very difficult for her to do another budget amongst everything else she has to do. But if we have two people here for 3, 4, 5 months, I think now is our opportunity to do that. And then the following year, she doesn't have she or he, whoever we hire to be the treasurer. It's just part of their regular process and, things may have to get shifted around a little bit, but I think if there's a chance to do it, this is our chance.
I can, through the chair, if I can make a comment, I agree we should be using some casino revenues to get the reserve number down. And I'd really like to investigate different rates especially on the sewage side.
So
I think we need to throw them out there then, right? I'm
Yeah.
sensing like this, they're throwing some numbers.
Yeah,
out
we
there,
can't
so we're-
investigate, you have to suggest.
Yeah,
I'll
Okay,
vote
thanks,
for
Olga.
sewage 7% instead of 5.
like across the board,
just sewage.
or just sewage? instead?
Sewage. I was
Tina,
looking at
that-
sewage, because that's,
All I need to do is,
You just change
Sewage
the-
residential or is there sewage commercial?
both.
Both.
So 7, you're thinking?
Yeah, that's just the number I picked, that I wrote down earlier.
I wrote,
Okay.
I wrote 10,
Yeah? Well, maybe we'll meet in the middle.
but we haven't yet.
Oh, is that sorry, Tina?
Well, give me a number.
You said 7, so start with
Say,
that
start
7.
with 7. And any other changes before I go?
Well, and is there value in rounding up reserves? Contribution, it's at what right now, $1.13 or so, $1.13?
$1.13. Go to $1.15.
Do we go to $1? I don't know, for rounding. Not gonna make a
But
huge-
that's just in the note anyway, at this point. Like, whatever we bring in,
Right,
so, but
yeah, I hear you.
for right now.
Yeah.
If you want me to see what we would reduce, the transfer, and where do you want the transfer? You want that divided half and half? You want that as 40-60? You want, you want some out of casino revenue, you want some out of reserves?
Yes, casino revenue.
I think we should, I think we should do 100 from each or thereabouts.
What, the number was 290,
No,
right?
we're at 291,
Yeah, so I'm saying,
855. That's gonna come down a little bit because of the extra 2%,
Yeah.
but,
I said 100, I meant approximately, but like a third from casino, a third from village reserves and a third from wastewater reserves.
Will I give us a third? So, I don't know, I didn't do the math totally.
That's like 95 and change, I think.
Okay.
Is that, and I'm just throwing it, we have to have agreement.
do you want casino revenues, casino or emergency reserves, basically?
Yep.
And water reserves.
A third of whatever that number ends
Whatever
up,
you're impacting is gonna impact
those other,
the spring budget.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, well, then just go on with your discussion about the,
and are we good with 7?
and want me to use 7?
Yeah, she's going to do calc, so let's
Yeah.
firm it up.
Like, I'm just wondering, what's the, like, just, Jim, you're good at math. How much more money is that gonna give us? 7, changing sewage to 7, so 2% of, it's about,
And remember, that's based on, because these numbers were based on January, October actuals. And November, December 22 actuals, we didn't have.
right, so We're
So that could fluctuate a bit too, depending on our,
it's 145, what's 2% of 145,000?
8,000, no. 800. 10%. 140,000 would be 14, 1% would be 1,400, 2% would be 2,800.
So changing sewage by 2%. Is gonna give Jay an extra $2,800 annually. Is that worth us going public and saying we're? Or did I get the wrong number here?
Tina, I changed these two numbers right here to 10%,
Oh, no, I'm wrong.
right?
Yeah.
And then I go down here. And it shows us in a surplus situation of $14,000.
okay, so then you would take that 291, 855 transfer and take that 14,000 off that.
Okay, but that's what would be generated, right? The 14, so increasing our sewage rates by 10% instead of 5%.
10%.
Right,
Yeah.
by, yeah.
Yeah.
By not, yeah, that's right. Would generate another $14,000.
Yeah, cause I didn't do
You
both
did that
lines
as a
there.
10, not 7,
I did it as a 10.
so it's 14.
I
I know it's up here. See, yeah, you can see it's 10% now instead
Okay.
of 5. Water's still the same. Reserves, I didn't do anything with,
yeah,
but I can, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do it as a percentage, so to change it to a flat
Yeah, I
number of
would-
$1.20.
and again, it's,
And it's gonna be minimal.
yeah, it's gonna be,
Yeah.
it's gonna be not even worth. Talking. And I think the 50% reserve increase is already going to give us, we're gonna get some feedback on that anyways. Not positive.
And then in terms of where
Where it's coming.
it's coming from,
You're saying third.
That's my recommendation, but
why? Why a third from the emergency reserve, from village reserves?
well, I think we, over the last 5 years, I know we keep talking about reducing our dependency on the casino revenue. For the next COVID, the next cyber attack, whatever happens,
Sure.
by creating, because we're not fixing the problem, we're putting a Band-Aid on it, right? We're taking $95,000, giving it to Jay's department to help, but the revenue's still short, so. I'm just thinking, if the casino, something happens and we don't have that 95 next year, then we're just sort of spreading the pain.
Okay, can I bring up another point?
You certainly
We
can.
just had laws in here asking for 86,000.
That's right.
But our reserves, our village reserves, how much is in village
Well,
reserve?
92
Nine-
of the emergency reserves.
But how much in total reserves do we have? Like, it's millions.
That's-
Yeah. Yeah, but it's millions, right?
I
Couple
want to
million?
say it's about 4, but
But a lot of that to do with the six.
yeah,
The fire truck in St. Clair, and yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah, a lot of it's allocated, but the actual emergency reserves is 918.
well, so I like to think of the emergency reserves, and
And what does that traditionally hover at?
we've been taking out of that
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty regular over the last few years.
what do you remember the highest that it's sat at? Do you remember?
I'm,
1.6.
I think so, Jim, or a little bit higher.
So we end up maybe half of it up.
So it, yeah,
But Larry Gordon used to ask that question to our auditor every year. And his question was always, how much should we have?
He said,
And they would never give us.
he said,
an
I can't give
answer.
you that answer.
Because it depends on what your
Yeah.
needs are, and if we have a need to spend money and we have money in it. That was the question Larry would ask every year.
but based on our 2013 document, we don't have enough.
Right.
And that's just one department.
Yeah.
Like it goes on, I think total 1.4 million a year should be in reserves. For all the departments,
So if
based
we-
on that 2013 document.
So
So,
just through the chair, if we approve this tonight, then I think what we need to do then is for next year is take Councilor Noctor's recommendation of creating a list of what we need to attack
Mhm.
to get the plant in top notch, and then reduce this worry about what are we gonna do next? So I think that it all should almost be a year. It's the plant's year.
can I make another comment? Like, so you're.
November, I'll say no.
No, she's gone on vacation.
I wrote it down, I'm gonna hold you to that.
So you're going to somehow come up with 86,000 for laws, which, but then all of Jay's projects that have been, if you started adding them up, they just kept getting bumped and bumped and bumped year after year.
Mhm.
I don't know the dollar value of that now, I can just keep- but.
But-
You've got to pick and choose,
Yeah.
like, right?
We've also
Because there's always
spent-
Something. there's
But
always-
But the only thing with laws money, the 86,000, it's a loan.
It's a loan.
Yeah.
And it's coming back to us,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Come
not
on.
like we spent something,
Yeah.
we gave it to them, they're gonna give it to us back with some interest.
Mhm.
So I don't feel like that's a really, it's not gone
No,
money.
but
But it's
also,
money coming out at one time.
Yes,
right?
yep,
A big
yep,
chunk.
yep.
but we've also, I don't want to give the wrong impression. There's projects that got bumped, but there was also a lot of spending that was done. Since Jay started.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
had, and we've talked about it,
We replaced a lot. of
we replaced a lot of things, so I don't want anybody to have the impression
Oh,
that.
no, I'm not saying that. I'm
No,
just
but
saying
I'm
that
just saying for anybody that's out there, there's
if
been a
we're
lot,
trying to-
right.
You're trying to, there's only so much.
Yeah.
pieces in the pie.
so we've been trying to catch up since, are you 8 years?
2015, yeah. We're good.
Almost 9, yeah, so ever since then, we started on that program of these big projects, and that's what's taken a lot of money is getting caught up.
And as long as we're playing catch up, we're
Yeah.
gonna keep costing more and snowball.
Right,
And if
So
we
can't
need to
for-
do
I
that,
guess
then
my
we
point
can't.
is You can't forget about everything, you keep pushing aside and.
and anything that, like, we didn't push aside anything that was essential. We had opinions, we had
Recommendations, right.
recommendations, right? So we had to make choices, and that's the same as like we were talking about earlier, planning projects that maybe we won't do because these are other priorities, but
Okay, on a different basis, Jim, when I'm updating this sheet. Am I supposed to be deleting that line, so you line up 250,000? That's not going
I
to the
would.
other budget?
Yeah, they're part of the 2023 budget now, so they come out.
So,
No,
so then if I may,
Uh,
for you, I have some line by line item questions.
but they can be eliminated of this budget. yes.
So,
Okay, so probably, I guess our discussion now is. What are you doing with this budget?
I just have some couple clarifications before we approve on the line by line. The meter transmitters, maintenance and purchases, it says Jay wants to combine 3 accounts to 1, which I fully support. But it's also being increased by almost 50%. What's
So
driving that?
that one is basically those accounts are Blue Water Power like to do, whenever we put a new meter in, we're going to the wireless transmitters. So the cost of the meters and the transmitters keep going up. Any of the service issue that people have discrepancies or issues with bills and they come out for Blue Water to check the transmitters and do all that work. We get billed for it.
Right.
We don't have the equipment to do the, like, Blue Water's only there, we've had other contractors only do that billing anyway, so we don't have the equipment to do those checks. So anything that has to do with metering and billing, that would all go into that.
Okay.
Basically, the reason it's going up is just from when we did the transition, we've seen more and more the meters are getting older. I don't know, I can't remember how many years ago we got pricing to do a complete.
Yeah, I remember that,
change
yeah.
out program. Back in, I think, 2017 or 18, it was
$300
Yeah,
$307. So that's, I guess, that's gonna be almost double.
So if you look, Greg,
Yep,
the one line, the budget was 3,500 and the actual right now is at 12,000.
yeah, I saw that, yeah. Yeah, so it
That's why.
becomes almost 15 grand, yeah, yeah. So it's, okay, that's fair. The equipment purchases. So it says 25,000 in capital, and then there's a note saying there's 20,000 in operating. So is that, you actually spent 45,000 on equipment purchases? And what, would that
Purchase,
include?
repairs, so pump rebuilds, maintenance, just any basically equipment, any purchases we have to buy for any type of equipment or repairs goes into those accounts.
okay,
Um,
and has it always been
We've
around
always spent-
45,000?
no,
It's just being
We-
increasing.
it's just with everything inflation, it just, the prices keep going up, the costs go up. And
Okay.
we spend the money every year. We've gone over multiple times. Unfortunately, when stuff breaks, we don't have the option of not fixing it. We're mandated by the legislation that if our ECA says we have two pumps or two allied chemical pumps that are in operation, we must have two chemical pumps in operation.
Okay.
So that's where that comes in. And unfortunately, the cost of everything is just.
And when it's updated again, that 50, the actual are gonna be over the 15,000. There has been more cost since these numbers. are here.
And then I see, just want to make sure, like, because it's hard for me to go all the way across the sheet, but we are putting a generator at Venetian, is that what's being proposed this year? Is that what the 45,000 is for,
No,
or is the line, you go all the way down to, yeah, so what's that 45,000 for?
Makes up air bill,
Oh, okay,
that's
sorry,
the-
air blower
Yeah,
building.
so that's the heating and air exchange system on the blower building.
Mhm.
We replaced. Trying to think back, it was 2017 maybe. We replaced 2018, we replaced the one on the. Digester building, we had requested to change the one on the blower building. That was. Turned down from the budget or taken out of the budget, so we had repairs done.
Yeah.
We've had repairs done multiple times. They've been in and then we've had the contractor come in and do the service on it. There's no more repairs will get done. It's,
yeah, no, I guess I was holding my paper wrong, so I lined up to
yeah,
Venetian.
so that is one that was deferred from, well, it's been deferred for probably 6, 7 years. And we just can't do anymore.
Now we're caught up to it.
Yeah, it can't be band-aided any further. It has to be replaced. There's nothing else to do.
That's all I have.
And that's when we did go through all these items. Everything was set on kind of that priority. A lot of the stuff we took out was, we'll take it out. Hopefully we get another year out of it. And with the understanding that if it fails, we're gonna have to.
Find money.
consult And deal with it at that time.
Thank you.
I have a question. On the laws operating capital, it says that that was a guess, but those numbers, like, the ones going from 221 to 317. On the capital side and from 24,000, hold on, no. 24, no, hold on. 119, no, okay, it's dropped, sorry.
Yeah,
But, so the law's capital is gonna go, our share is going way up, and that was with a guess of 10%. Is that an accurate number?
Those numbers are the right numbers.
They're the right numbers now? Okay, thank
My
you.
notes might not be.
Yeah, okay,
but numbers-
that's what I just wanted to see. Okay. That's not negotiable.
Think the difference, wasn't it? It was a big capital project, but the sheet he gave me was based on what was approved, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
so we need to come to agreement on the transfer in. With the
And
makeup,
percentage.
That's, you mean
the suggested 3-part
Right, yeah.
percentage,
Okay.
or I'm just looking for consensus on. how to
For the village revenues, are you saying 10 now, not 7?
Jim said
Yeah, 10, yeah,
Jim said
10% is gonna generate an additional $14,000.
feel that buffet.
2% is about another
So-
$3,000.
So that 14,000, does that come off the 291?
Yeah.
Yes.
Then,
It's just a matter of where you're gonna,
yeah, and then figure out where. The makeup of the transfer, well, 14,000 is 14,000.
I'd like to hear from everyone else on the 10.
Yep.
It's a big number
Yep.
and
Yeah, it is a big number, but let's see, I'm thinking of what we bring in. That would leave us,
For me, the 10, sometimes when we're dealing in percentages,
You want-
it doesn't.
You
have
want
a huge
dollars.
dollar value. I always like to work in
Yeah.
how much is it gonna cost me per month?
Yeah.
Cause I know it came up before, we were talking about
Mhm.
in our meetings about a 50% increase on something, well, it was gonna be a 50% on a buck.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it wasn't a
we're
huge
talking
number.
pennies
Yeah,
So
in
this,
that case.
this $14,000 that's generated, we have roughly 1,000 customers in the village. So it's basically gonna cost them
Dollar a month.
$1.40 a year.
$1.40 a year. Like,
That's what I'm saying.
$1.40 a year, okay, so we're
So-
talking.
Ten's okay for me, just to.
Yeah,
cut
yeah,
to the
yeah,
chase.
so,
That bottom
so it'd be like 10 cents a month is what we're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge number, but it's not.
Yeah, that's why I like dealing in dollars
percentages are
versus
confusing.
percentages.
Percentages are really confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's a good way to do we talked about that one year about the press release, focusing on whatever number is the most palpable.
To the homeowner.
Yeah,
$14 a year,
A year.
$14,
Oh,
right?
$14 a year.
14,000 divided by 1,000.
Yeah.
so a buck a month,
So that note that we circulated that said
$5.94.
five something, it's
Yeah.
basically gonna be $7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
7, whatever.
But the question is what we bring in, right? From casino?
So I would be okay with pulling from the emergency reserves only because part of this is going toward the new, possibly toward the new building. And I do believe that that is an emergency issue that can't be pushed off, needs to be dealt with. So I'd be okay with the three-way split on that. If it weren't for the emergency nature of that, I don't think I would want to pull from that. But that's my thinking on that.
Yeah, that's not really,
part of
that's
that
being funded. At least
this year.
we haven't really decided how it's being
Mhm.
funded, but it potentially would be funded either by Infrastructure Ontario or loan from the village if we have the funds available to do it.
So
Yeah,
next year
but-
area, I
Mhm.
can see it, 'cause then your interest portion
Mhm.
would be. Part of your.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if it's not, if we're not using the emergency funds for an emergency. Then I don't know how much casino revenue is and what is. I didn't see the budget from last year, so I don't know how much is.
1.7. last
Yeah,
year
but
we
and we're right,
allocated.
we're a little bit ahead of budget, but not much. Like
Yeah, we'll be
I think we were
close.
about 40,000 ahead after the third quarter. Give or take.
There's no-
I'm not against entirely using the emergency fund, but I don't see a good reason to do that.
Not the whole way. Yeah.
Okay.
like, the only. The only thing I caution is. Every casino dollar is basically spoken for 3 times over already.
That's
So
what I'm
to
saying.
take an extra $100,000 out of there, then. Either the arena or the fire department or somebody else is gonna suffer, where. If we take it out of the emergency reserves, and I think building up the reserve, whether we use some of that, like we may only have to finance. A portion of the building. If we might take. $500,000 out of the wastewater department reserves. and
Right,
a
we
mi-
did take 250 out of the casino last year,
For Jay's department,
so if you're saying 100 this year.
Oh, it's a lot less, yeah,
that's good then,
yeah.
that's good, yeah.
So the number is 277,072. We take that 291 number and subtract the 14,783. The new that we need to find from those 3 sources is 277,072.
Well, we take 100 from casino, 100 from water reserves and the 7 from emergency reserves.
I was thinking of going. Yeah,
Well, it's interesting to know 250 from last year.
Or-
so we took 250 out of the casino to,
Right at the top,
And everybody still got money.
and this year in the
Okay.
budget, we have 0 from the casino.
yeah. Right.
In the revenue, there's,
I just plugged the number into water, wastewater reserves.
So how did that happen? How did we not need,
We were,
Last year we needed 250,000,
And we took it all from casino.
took it off from the casino.
and was that at the end of the budget we did that, or to start, do you remember?
Say.
Like, was
I
that at
think it
the
was
end?
up front.
I think it, well,
I think it was up
night, it was like
Yeah.
pre-discussed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when it was presented.
Yeah, 'cause I know sometimes we added at the end
Yeah.
of the night to get it down to percent or
That
whatever.
was our capital.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
But you knew going into our March budget last year that 250 was already
Spoken for.
spoken. for.
yeah.
Right, there it is. Well, that, so it says from Village of Hanover Capital.
Yeah.
But
That's what
that's
we
the
call
casino,
it.
yeah, okay, okay. Wow. But then, but Tina, is it not here?
That, the 250 that's on this year is for that assessment, condition assessment work, and we're
Okay.
taking it
No,
out.
we're gonna take it out. We don't need
It's gonna go.
Okay,
to
because
the village.
it's offset in the
Still
budget.
gonna go for the budget.
Yes,
That's
Yeah.
what we're-
into, yeah, yeah.
What regulates how we spend the reserve for the emergency reserves?
Really, that's just the name we give it. And so there's no
very strong.
legislation that
Well, like
says,
for that, when that road broke.
Sure. Or no legislation, maybe, do we have something internally that, or do we just decide when we want to use it, when we don't?
pretty
You
much.
guys decide.
It's more of a moral barometer, council, what we determine.
And
Something that we hadn't started to put money away for, like the truck,
Mhm.
so.
And the word emergency is a strong word.
It's a very
Yeah,
strong word.
yeah.
It's almost like a,
I think it was called something else before, and a few years ago, you guys changed the word.
like it's more of a slush fund.
Call it
Yeah.
contingency.
Right? It's like a petty cash.
That's a big
Contin-
difference, but if we're calling it an emergency fund,
Yeah.
Contingency.
Contingency fund.
Yeah, it should be more like
That's the
that,
word the county
contingency. So,
uses.
so if we're doing a project, like the roof on the arena, and it goes over budget by 20,000, then we draw it from the contingency
Contingency.
fund. So maybe we should look at renaming it. Just so we don't get all
Yeah.
hung up on this word, right?
Yeah,
Like,
well, that's,
that's where I'm stuck.
Yeah,
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 yeah, exactly.
yeah, there's definitely, there's no bylaw that says these are the things that can be used for, there's no provincial legislation, it's simply a name. And yeah, you can change that.
So we're back to 27,
So,
no,
but. Yeah,
5
go
and
ahead.
10.
277.
Yep.
We know that we took 250 last year. Even if you went to 200, you're decreasing what you take from the casino and split the rest.
Yeah, but I think we really need to focus on reducing their reliance on casino revenue. I think if we can do that this year, I think it's a step in the right direction.
Well,
And if we finish doing the capital budget and there's money left over, well, we'll put it back into the contingency reserves, right? So we may very much, we may very much read, what's that?
money left over.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But it's happened before where we've
Yeah.
had,
That's our decision. We can
Yeah.
make it,
yes.
like, we can decide ahead of time,
So-
we're gonna put this much away, and
Yeah.
then that cuts it down
So
for
we can take
everybody
the
else.
third out of the contingency reserve tonight. We can put it right back in March when we have our next meeting and
Yeah, because then if we go over in our casino revenues, that goes back,
Yes.
normally goes back into either the road fund or the. emergency
we can still call it
fund.
emergency, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, what you're saying is, we often replenish that as part of our next budget meeting.
So really, we're deciding more how much from the water reserves are we gonna use? The rest of it
Essentially.
can be
Yeah.
moved around.
Yeah,
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 down the road,
Yeah.
yes.
Because we still have to consider there could be a deficit in water. That would definitely have to come from the water.
Okay,
So essentially, we'll be transferring almost 250,000 into reserves this year, right? If the math's right. If 277, what's that, 85,000 or 90,000? So we're putting 320 in, but we're taking 90 out, so.
right. Tina's saying we could have a deficit.
Yeah,
yeah.
So, well, we're not gonna have,
not 230, but it'll be. You know, any inkling what the number might be?
No, no, I got too much.
Okay.
yeah,
The reserves right now are sitting at 622,000. That's up to the end of November now. That's November. That's kind of maybe another 14,000.
I think that's what we said the other day was,
So if we had another 200 in this year, that except for around 800. And we might be able to finance like a portion of this building. It'll take us back to a dangerous situation in the reserves, but it would reduce us paying out a truckload of interest. Over the years, but
and on the building. This year, we don't pay anything, we pay something next year, but we have to have, that money has to come from someplace.
Yeah, that depends on how you finance it. If you finance it internally, then, yeah, if the building's approved and we finance it internally, then it's all gotta be paid, hopefully. It gets done this year and it's all paid for this year. If we're borrowing money.
Yeah,
to
so we're
do it,
borrowing money.
If we're borrowing money from an outside organization, then there really isn't. You know, if at the end of December, when the building's done, it was 1.2 million. I mean, we can decide to borrow any portion of that at that time, right?
Mhm.
So the gamut is large.
Yeah.
You can borrow 300,000 and pay the rest internally. You can borrow 1.2 million and you know, we can make
Yeah.
those decisions down the road. So
But we have to be aware of, if we do borrow, we've got a payment.
yes.
And that money's gotta come from something. We gotta allocate money.
And then in theory, it would be nice, like if you're gonna, if somehow we pay for that building out of contingency reserves or whatever reserves we have. It'd be nice to have the water department make a payment back to that loan, like treat it as a loan and.
Even
you know,
interest free, I'd be.
Even
okay
if,
with.
yeah,
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
But the money comes back to the village.
and I mean, there will be, like, there will be advantages to all departments. I mean, it's mainly to support environmental, but there'll be advantages to other departments there in terms of meeting space and, you know. So I don't think it's at all unreasonable to have the village pay for a portion of that building. I don't think that's
So what,
unreasonable at all.
what about 150 from casino? That reduces it from 100,000 from last year and then split the difference between the two reserves.
And then we can always move money.
And we can move money, as
Back
we talked
into-
about, yeah. You can pump up the reserves.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay.
Want to force her to break the tie?
So
Well,
one,
it's coming, it's
Yeah.
come down
I-
100,000,
okay, yeah.
so you're achieving that dependency issue. And
Right
then,
now, Jim, take 150,000 off of 277, see what we're left with. And I'll-
122,
I will change the line.
27.
I got 127,
yeah, 120. Oh, I see, it
127.
was- yeah.
and then split that.
Split,
The 150,000 back in,
put it back in.
into another line.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. So right there,
Give up line for now. Give up.
is that enough zero?
No, I think you need another one.
And I'll go to the bottom just to make sure. Are you still at 0 now? Yeah, okay, so then that 127, you're saying to split between the two reserves, is that what you're saying?
Was there a suggestion?
Anything that increases the amount we're putting into the water.
So really,
reserves.
with that 150, it would go up to the revenue section, transfer from the capital, VP capital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make that 0.
So the line that had the 250 last year would have 150 this year.
Yeah.
So take that 150 out of there, Jim, for now.
Tina, do you know what I'm doing?
Yeah, so
She's
right,
calling you.
zero that out.
Take that out,
Go up top of the revenues.
It's right there, Tina, water from VP Capital.
right here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right there.
Make that
Change that to 150.
150. Okay,
Then you gotta find 100 somewhere.
no, now go back down into your capital, take that 250 assessment condition out.
Yes.
And make that
There.
0. Okay, now we're going to divide that 20, whatever that number is.
27 something?
The 122,
Oh,
yep, 63, 536.
So if that's what your plans are between water reserve, an emergency reserve. the water reserve number would be down in that transfer, that other one will be up top underneath that 250,000. It's coming out of,
So I can change this to 63,
no, I like the,
another line,
yeah, then I'll just change the
the
description.
name, okay?
One's gonna come out of casino reserve, or casino capital budget, one's gonna come out of the emergency reserve on our side.
So then I should put another 63, 536 where this
Yes.
150 is.
No,
No,
a separate line again.
shouldn't the 127 go to 63? Right, because we just divided it in half,
Yeah.
That's the one that will be 63,
and then
536.
and the one below it is the other one, half of it,
Yes,
but you're gonna,
It's gonna be 0 below it, and up top is gonna be 63.
Okay.
And we're bringing revenues in from village side. So,
so the second 63 had to turn to 0.
Yeah.
Oh, but you're at
No,
0.
no, but that's
Okay,
just in the wrong spot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's right.
Can we go up to the top to see what that 10% difference does on the sewage side?
It's already here.
it's 14,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, what does it take us where we need to be as far as budget wise? You know, that,
So
So
we're
we're-
now
we're-
it's saying, okay, so our.
so we're saying
51
164 and 160,
And before it was 157 and 153,
so that doesn't bring up a lot. but still.
14,000.
14,000.
14,000 only, okay.
So, okay, so Jim, back to proceeds, we're up,
What was our?
go back up to the revenues. That's where that other 63 has to go in one of those lines. You can leave it where it is for now, and I will
Fix it tomorrow, yeah.
fix it.
Yeah, I'm,
Before we do too many changes. But that's, you guys get the idea.
Yep.
Yep.
It's revenues up top.
Yep.
And a transfer from the water.
so if we're happy with this, the motion would be that we increase water rates and connection or service charges by 5%. We increase sewage rates by 10% and we increase reserve charges by
2 cents.
no.
No, oh, wasn't
by,
that that? Oh, I thought that
from
was. a permanent
75
thing.
to $1.
13.
$1.13.
$1.13 is what's in the, yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
from 75 cents per cubic meter to $1.13 per cubic meter.
And then my last question, although I said that twice already, haven't I? Not? From an optics perspective, and because we've been dealing in ballpark numbers with no, can we leave the building at 1.1? I know it's just an in and out thing, but, and then when it finally gets approved, we adjust it accordingly.
Yeah, but I don't think it's realistic.
Okay.
Cause you know, that 1.1 was. How many years have we been talking?
Like,
3 or 4 now?
we were at, I think last year, the ballpark number from the contractor was 1.4-ish. And then we dropped to 1.1 for to make it look a little more appetizing, and that's why we put it back up.
Like, I just don't think you're being realistic if you just keep.
Until,
But it's not appetizing at 1.6, right?
honestly, until we get the information from the engineer, that's gonna floor plan in the primary design of the building, then they can get the construction. They're educated of their current construction cost. Yeah, we can't, like, it's not we can't guarantee it's gonna be 1 million or 1.6 million until they actually, you know, they've been asked to do everything, design the whole building in the most economic way that it can be done. So I've met with them, they've come up with some changes and ideas of how they could possibly, you know, make it a smaller footprint and make everything work. It's gonna be 2 levels, so it'll be, you know, office upstairs, downstairs type of deal to make sure we meet accessibility and all that. But they had quite a number of ideas that could possibly keep the price, you know, to a lower number.
Lower than 1.6?
They never gave me a number.
Okay.
They just said they're gonna look at however they design it they're gonna do it in a way that will be cheaper way of doing it. And that's what they're gonna present to the village once they're, hopefully within the next, you know.
And that's what I'm just saying, the 1.6 really had no. It was just a guy spitball.
The 1.4 came from, it was a rough budget number from one of the local contractors, so.
And I hear what you say, it's a dollar in, dollar out, but,
And
but at the same time, it's just, it keeps creeping up and.
it does keep creeping up, my other point is that if you have a higher number and it comes in lower, you look better. I'm gonna see the 1.1 and all of a sudden you for 1.
No, I don't believe in that kind of budgeting, because, budget 1.1, and then when it's 1.2, we're mad, and we try and find that money to get it back. Where it
Yeah,
should be.
but you know that 1.1 is not.
Well, we don't know that, because the 1.4 was just a guy spitballing, right? He basically said, could be that
It's a
educated guess.
educated
Yeah.
guess. Like until,
is.
and even the engineer, like until. No, until the actual tenders go out and you get the bids, like St. Clair was an example, we had bids from one extreme to the other. This building, it all depends on, you know, when these approvals are given out, when the tenders go out, how busy contractors are super busy, the prices will be higher. If people are looking for work,
Mhm.
they'll be lower.
Yep.
Depends on, you know, material costs, everything. It's right now, everything seems so volatile as far as pricing goes. You just, you know, most companies and contractors won't guarantee a price for more than 30 days right now.
Mhm.
Some of them, they won't guarantee you past the day.
Mhm.
Like if you don't sign an estimate, like a quote, tomorrow's a different price. It just-
This 1.5 number, that also includes engineering money too, right? Like there's the money for what we're getting in a week or 2 or 3 is already budgeted from last year, but any, like the second phase and the construction phase are in that number.
But I thought that was we have money in reserves for that, do we not? We put money in reserves. I think we put like almost
We
100
did
grand.
one time, we had
70,000.
70, but I thought we pulled it out.
No, that's part of.
It's still there.
It's still there,
the
yeah.
numbers there.
Okay,
It's
so-
still there.
Part of that number I gave you.
I saw it when I looked through the reserves, there's still money
The
there.
622 in there right now includes that 70.
Okay, okay.
You remember discussion that year, it was going in, it was coming out, it was going in.
Mhm.
Yes,
And it's just, they,
well,
So
price is what gonna be what it is, because we don't have a choice, we have to do this,
I'm just trying to manage,
so
when you,
it has to be done.
when you put the 1.6 number out there, then people think, oh, good, we got it for 1.55, when we started at a much lower number, right? And so, like as T said, then you think, it's like over deliver, under deliver and over, I don't know, but it's more than it should be, and it just sitting with the 1.6 number, it just seems way too high. But again, it still has to be approved and finalized.
And.
I just don't want people walking around thinking we've agreed to $1.6 million at this stage.
Yeah,
And when
and
it's in the budget like that, it looks like we've approved $1.6 million.
it's
where
a
we-
placeholder.
Yeah, it's a placeholder, but.
And the other number,
1.1 can be a placeholder as well.
that was from 4 years ago.
Yeah, but it just reinforces that these numbers mean nothing.
If we would have done it 4 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about it today.
okay, so what number do you want? Do you want to leave that number or do you want to change it? Right now?
you change it to 1.4 in both spots and
It makes no difference. It's
No,
just,
it is.
it's optics and it's just.
Okay, then are we agreed on that?
Oh.
Sorry,
Tina.
what happened?
It updated both spots.
Oh,
Yeah,
For how she did that.
sure.
This cell equals that cell.
Did you take a course?
do we need a motion on the division of the money coming in?
There should be a motion that
Excuse me.
service charges and water rates be increased by 5%. Water rates be increased. Let me start over. That water rates and service charges be increased by 5%. That sewage rates be increased by 10%. That reserve rates be increased from 75 cents per cubic meter to $1.13 per cubic meter. And that $150,000 be brought forward from village capital. That $63,536 be brought forward from water reserves. And that $63,536 be brought into the budget from the
Emer-
emergency reserve is the
Emergency
current
fund.
name.
Okay, who wants to have somebody make the motion?
Well, Ariana's the chair.
I'll s-
I can't remember all of that.
Well, I'm just what he
It's all
said.
city
Just
states,
what he
okay?
said, what he said. And a seconder? So Counselor Burgess,
Councillor Nocturne and Burgess.
Okay,
And what
so
Jim
I
said.
will update all the different sheets in the morning. And send them to Jim, and then you guys can have a clearer picture of.
Nope, won't be any clearer.
all right, moving on.
What do I want to answer there? Yes or no? I
Okay,
can't read it.
I have no idea what
I
it
think it's
says.
a yes.
Traditionally, it's a yes.
Hyperlinks can be harmful to your computer and data.
Oh, okay, I could say yes then.
And then it said delete,
For these stores.
I think it said delete all files.
Okay, so this is all to do with water now, I can. exit.
Thank you so much for your
Thanks, team.
guidance and expertise
And patience.
and patience, yes.
Thank you, Jay.
It's your last water budget. No, it isn't.
Good, but yeah.
Yes, it is.
Last one to
Sorry.
present, yeah.
Yeah,
And not one of the worst, right?
So I've saved that, Tina, on the Y drive, and I just called it budget council meeting version. It won't wreck anything that you've already got.
so skip
So
that.
then we motion to close the public meeting.
Okay, motion to close the meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second, thank you. Okay,
Don't think I'm in the minutes.
now we'll move on to, like, all of these are empty, so.
Yeah. it's
Number
new business.
14, new business. Kim helps request for exemption to the fence bylaw.
So this is 406 Arthur. So the fence has been built at 6 feet. And it goes, so there's a vinyl fence that runs between the two properties. That basically ends at the west side of Mr. Paluk's property. And then there was a wooden fence there that was torn down back in early November. And so Miss Helps replaced that fence. She put it at 6 feet. And then she left the posts 2 feet high and she would like to put lattice in that space. So in her letter, that's what she's asking for is 2 foot. Permission to put a 2 foot lattice on top of her 6 foot fence. And then I believe. So she is considering. Replacing the fence on the back of her property as well in the coming year. I believe that she would like to do the same thing, put a 6 foot fence with a 2 foot lattice there. That's not. I don't believe she's asking for that in this letter.
I don't think so.
But I know she has told me, like, I went over there yesterday to look at what she's doing, just so I knew. I got a little caught up in the vinyl on top of last time, so I wanted to see it for myself, so I knew what I was talking about. And between that and another conversation, I'm sure she's told me that she would like to replace the back fence next year and do the same thing, so.
I have a question regarding the front fence, which was the original issue.
Mhm,
Has it been rectified? 6
Yes.
feet?
it's been cut down.
A couple of months ago.
Yeah, even more, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Uh,
very shortly after the decision was made
Yeah.
not to reconsider. very quickly after that, it was taken down.
Just another question on that. Was she issued a notice on that, like officially from property standards?
Yep,
So
property
property
standards.
standards was out there a few times to see this.
Yes.
Was she charged? For those visits?
Not yet.
Okay, is the plan to charge her for those visits?
I would have to look back in the file and see what, see how many visits were made there and
Cause I think did we not say the first one was free and then after that,
as long as people are kind of cooperative. The
but
first
once
one's free.
you're issued a notice, that's another.
I don't know, I don't know off the top of my head how many visits were made to the property. I would have to review. See what we're gonna be charging or anything additionally.
The last time Jesse was here, he went over to confirm that it was cut down. He went and looked,
Yeah,
so that's the last that I'm aware of.
and those it's possible that those were only the two visits.
Yeah.
One to talk to her and
Yeah,
I just don't know that information off the top of my head.
I have a sense that. it
I've
was
looked
you,
and I've
but-
seen that the fence looked to be cut down, I just wanted to verify that. The original issue, that's what it was, right? And now this is a subsequent request.
I think it should be noted too that Ms. Helps. The fence was removed at the back without her knowledge.
Yeah.
She came home from work one day and the fence was gone. She has a dog in her yard. The dog was not able to use the yard until, so she, as quickly as possible, put a fence up over the weekend to secure her
Contain the
yard.
animal.
She assumes the fence was removed by a neighbor, but has no proof, but she went to work and came home and the fence was gone, so. Just so we're aware of the context of what's going on, because she probably would have applied for the proper exemption to go to an 8-foot fence, but had to secure her yard promptly and quickly, and so she went with the 6-foot with the intention of applying for this exemption.
With lattice.
Yes.
When we talked about the height of a fence previously, we discussed how the reason for the bylaw was so that it didn't feel prison-like, essentially, right? When's the last time that was reviewed? Because, I mean, does a lattice on top of the 6 feet to make it 8 feet, make it less so? Is that something that we're comfortable with? Because if it is, then it should just be a general.
In the bylaw.
The bylaw.
Should be amended to allow it.
So that we don't have to approve every single lattice that is.
I think the bylaw's from 97, isn't it? The fence
It's,
bylaw?
yeah, it's. If not, it might be, I think the original might have been 97 and there was an amendment for this height restriction. And I just don't know if the height restriction was
Yeah,
later, but yeah,
Was
it's
it was
it's been around.
06 or 07?
yeah,
Yeah.
they're still,
It was in
That's
the
still
2000s,
quite-
It's been a while.
right?
yeah, it's still quite old.
And I'm not saying that we should reserve judgment on this specific issue, but if we decide that, yes, we're okay with a lattice on top of a 6-foot fence, then I think that should be added to the bylaw,
Mhm.
that's acceptable for everybody.
So in the meantime, it's like case by case, as this one is. Until if you make such an amendment, otherwise,
Mhm.
And I think the thing to remember, based on what I've seen at the property, is this 8-foot section is at the rear of her property,
Mhm.
and it's predominantly beside her neighbor's shed. So it's not at the front of the property, it's more towards the back, where she hopes to put a hot tub or pool, so it's not it won't be as obvious or as obtuse as the front one was at 8-foot, so it's
Mhm.
to the back half of her property, and it would affect less people back there.
There's about 30 feet of fence there. That's, give or
That
take,
section, eh?
it's about
Yeah.
30 feet. I mean, I didn't measure it, but there's 4 sections. They're roughly 8 feet each. So it's
And
about.
how much vinyl is there? Is it about half and half?
I would say roughly, the vinyl basically is the full width of his house.
Right, okay.
I mean, lattice is less fortress-like because it's open air. Then I don't know if I want to see every house surrounded by 8. But this is more palatable to have a lattice, gives you that sense of privacy, but it still has the open air about it.
If in fact we went around to the village, made a tape measure. That's,
Yeah.
people are going 6-foot fences with lattice on top. You can tell when you look at it,
Yeah.
right? So, you know,
And just a follow-up through you, is the neighbor aware that we are considering this exemption? And are we
I
any
am not.
requirement to tell him? No?
No, there's no
No, I asked that
requirement in the
question.
bylaw that we have to contact any neighbors. I highly doubt she has talked to them.
Yeah.
So like I raised an example to CAO Burns where I remembered someone coming in with letters around a fence that got an exemption on Monk Street. But they did that of their own accord to talk to all the neighbors and had letters of agreement. They didn't have to do that.
No.
So I thought that was part of the process. It's not.
It could be, I mean,
It could be, but-
it could be
Yeah,
in the future if you wanted it to be, but
And one last question in my famous one last questions is the letter of support that's on there. Is it okay, given the concerns with the previous letter of support that we pulled down? There's just some wording in there.
yeah,
that
I'm not
comfortable
I'm not
with it.
comfortable with it.
And is it necessary? Did we,
Yeah.
Yeah, conjecture,
Mhm.
yeah, there was some,
the whole thing about swimming pool.
I'm just trying to protect ourselves from what,
I can take it down.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
from what happened
I
in
would,
the
please.
last letter and how it was received. Her letter can stay, but. So I'll move if I may, that, oh, so, okay, but I'm not moving did you change it? Or okay, so I'll move that the request for exemption to the fence bylaw be approved and that the CA, and that's where I would end it. My personal, that's why I'm moving it.
As long as you're confirming that it's 6 feet with lattice up
That's-
2 feet.
That's the,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
exemption she's
Okay,
requested, so.
thank you.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Opposed?
I would like to see that bylaw reviewed though,
Okay.
in the future,
Um,
not so distant future.
I can circulate it. Like tomorrow, I can have it circulated and we can discuss it at the 23rd. If you want to have the discussion before I present an amended bylaw. Or
well,
amend-
I'm also interested in knowing what's common practice.
Okay.
I mean,
can
I
reach
just
out to the
personally
building
like to know,
department.
like, does it look normal in other communities? Is that the new flavor of the day, 8? I don't know.
I think during the height of the pandemic, people spent a lot more time at
Yeah,
home and
yeah.
they made their backyard oasis.
Yeah.
You could call it, a lot more people did, instead of spending that time at public parks and beaches.
Exactly.
And now they want the added privacy.
Yeah,
involved
good
with
point,
that.
yeah.
So it's understandable
When
and it's
they're-
more
When
common,
they're in the hot tub.
more hot tubs,
Yeah.
more
Yeah,
above ground pools.
yeah,
I had a buddy who lived in a subdivision that there was no fences allowed
Yeah.
in Michigan.
Yeah, I've seen
Where they
some of
bought
those.
the house, it was all written into the site plan and everything where you were not allowed to put a fence up. If you had a dog, you got the. You know, the invisible
Yeah,
fence.
or leash, yeah.
I was thinking about that the other day because London, I believe London came out with a bylaw that said you weren't allowed to have a clothesline in these certain subdivisions. And now you're being told like, hang your clothes outside.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't allowed a clothesline, so. Like part of the not putting out to the air.
Mhm.
Okay. Community events. And public announcements.
Can I ask a new business request real quick? The Venetian Village sign, do you have an update on that yet? The Venetian Village, Venetian Road. Welcome to Port Edward sign. Remember,
I asked the question, but I don't remember what the answer is. I'll ask tomorrow and I'll shoot out a
email, that'd be great.
message to
Yep,
everybody.
thank you. That's all, sorry. Mary Ann.
I just was at the arena this weekend, taking in a lot of the hockey, and again, teams from the county that were playing here, the Lambton teams, Moortown, Sarnia teams, they're all very complimentary about our arena, our staff, how good condition of our ice, clean dressing rooms, nothing but positive comments from the people that I talked to. They were very happy to be in the Point Edward Arena.
If I can expand on that quick, there was one gentleman there from the States. He owns a fourplex, like a 4-pad ice rink, and he complimented the staff. He said it's the cleanliness, the quality of the ice, and just the overall, given the age of the facility, what great condition it was in, and he was really impressed with it. So there's a man who owns rinks.
Was
and
that the green jacket gentleman from
I'm
Pennsylvania?
not sure exactly where he's from.
Jim?
Might be him, yeah.
Yeah, because he was talking to me about our community too. He was staying at the Harborfront,
Yep.
not the Harborfront, sorry. Middle Hotel,
Oh,
Hampton.
Hampton. He was at the Hampton Inn. And he was talking about our community and how unique it was.
oh, good. Nice.
And we did pass on in the committee meeting, our thanks to the arena staff for what they did. And we also talked about to the works and arena around Christmas in the Village, because we haven't had a meeting committee since those activities took place. Okay. I did already mention to you, I just bring it up again, like next week when I go to county for committee, it's now called Committee of the Whole. We start at 9 o'clock and it's everyone combined as committee, and it's a 1-year pilot to see how it goes, rather than have AM, PM. That's all I think I had for an update.
It's January, not much is happening.
Hey, that's it for me. Do you have anything?
Confirmation.
Oh,
Confirmation about the water volumes.
I'll do it. That bylaw 1 of 2024 being a bylaw to confirm the resolutions of Point Edward Council, which were adopted up to including January 9th, 2024. Be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on this day, January 9th, 2024.
second. All in favor?
Adjourn.
Second,
Thank you.
because we're closest to the door, so.
All in favor?
All in favor? Thank you. Light off.
You know,
Not yet.
No.